Hello, good evening everyone. My name is Damien, the tall, friendly atheist dad, and host of the Tall, Friendly Atheist Dad podcast, and welcome to part 18 of An Atheist Reads I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Geisler and Frank Turek.
So far from lies and hypocrisy, returns to energy, and silence becomes brave. Don't ask me the reason why. Just say I only dream in black and white, future's nothingness, but I can choose another end, open in my eyes, and you beginning in my life, without emptiness to feel. I am sure of myself, no mercy until the end.
Hello and good evening. Yes, my name is Damien, the tall, friendly atheist dad, and host of the Tall, Friendly Atheist Dad podcast. And yes, as I said, this is part 18 of An Atheist Reads I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. So this is a little light show display I found. I hope you like it, just to give you something to look at while you're listening to my lovely, lovely voice. Some people say it's lovely, some people say it's not. Americans dig my voice, but in my part of the world, it's like, it's just me, you know. It's just me, and like I do have a deep voice, but it's just. Anyway. So I hope you enjoy the Small Orange Lights in the Background by Josu Relax, and the music just then, and the music I will be playing is from Victim of Illusion, all the way from Italy, and their latest album, Invisible Light. Head on over to victimofillusion.bandcamp.com and purchase their album for a very reasonable price and support independent artists. So yes, anyway, so I do have a playlist with the other 17 parts. Sometimes I'm joined by guests and sometimes I'm not. I've just rebooted my reading series, so it's I haven't got around to inviting people back on yet. I just want to see how it goes, because I've basically been on a work project that's required some really early hours and having to shuffle a few things around. But now things are more settled down and all that kind of stuff. So yes, I'm kind of getting back into it and just thought, get into content creation. Speaking of content creation, today episode 66 of the Tall Friendly. I forget which one it was. 66, 67, I forget. But actually, I can tell because I've got it right here. Or was it? Yes, it is episode 66, where I respond to Braxton Hunter's 10 Questions for Atheists in 2021. So it was from last year, but I've kind of just scheduled it for this year because I'm kind of working on a bit of a different schedule to how I did things last year. And also, by the way, if you want to jump in and comment, feel free to comment. If you want to jump in and be part of the book discussion, feel free to be part of the book discussion. I've got no problems there either way. Just if you are going to comment, keep your comments respectful. There's a few people on my what I call my shit list who yes, I have no problems blocking. So yeah, if you want your say, feel free to have your say, but just make it respectful. Otherwise, if you do happen to have the book, I'm currently on page 120. Now, I haven't read this book for a while, so I haven't really got my thoughts in gear, but this is the cool thing about a live stream reading, is that you just, it is entirely off the cuff, and off the cuff is just a shorthand for can't be bothered preparing. So anyway, I'm going to hit the music. So I'll play the music when I'm reading the book, and I'll mute the music when I'm giving my personal opinions. So 3, 2, 1. All right. Sorry about that. Just actually, I'm going to take my jacket off. 2 seconds. Sorry, yes, my jacket was rubbing on my earpiece, which is causing a bit of a grating noise. Anyway, so page 120. 3, 2, 1. This perception is perpetuated by the media, who consistently depict the debate in terms of the 1960 movie Inherit the Wind, which fictionalized the 1925 Scopes monkey trail. You know that depiction. It basically goes like this. Here come those crazy religious fundamentalists again, and they want to impose their dogmatic religion and ignore objective science. It didn't take long for me to find something to respond to. So yeah, I joke that this is the book, one of the books that raises my blood pressure, for good reason, because yeah, what 2 sentences in I've already found something to respond to. And the truth of the matter is that there are crazy religious fundamentalists who want to impose a dogmatic religion and ignore objective science. Anyone who studies the US religious landscape, especially with regards to education, will know exactly what I'm talking about. And hello, Adine. Adine, I'm going to give you a warning. If you post any disrespectful comments, I will block you. Just be aware of that, okay? Have your say. Keep it respectful. So anyway, so it's sort of like Frank and Norman are ignoring like the most virulent aspects of their people of their religion, and just going, well, look, we wouldn't hurt anyone, would we? No. Anyway, back to the book. Actually, nothing could be further from the truth. The creation-evolution debate is not about religion versus science or the Bible versus science. It's about good science versus bad science. Likewise, it's not about faith versus reason. It's about reasonable faith versus unreasonable faith. It may surprise you to see just who is practicing the bad science and just who has the unreasonable faith. Hello, Akash Deep. As we've mentioned before, science is a search for causes. Logically, there are only 2 types of causes: intelligent and non-intelligent, i.e. natural. The Grand Canyon had a natural cause, and Mount Rushmore had an intelligent one. Unfortunately, on the question of first life, Darwinists like Dawkins and Crick rule out intelligent causes before they even look at the evidence. In other words, their conclusions are preloaded into their assumptions. Spontaneous generation by natural laws must be the cause of life because they consider no other options. Alright, it's no wonder that I'm almost 20 parts in and I'm barely a third of the way through the book, because they get so much wrong. They get so much, real. So this line here, the creation evolution debate is not about religion versus science or the Bible versus science. It's about good science versus bad science. No, that is entirely incorrect. I was lucky enough, I think episode 30 of the podcast was when I got to interview Glenn Branch from the National Centre for Science Education. And we actually went over the Kitzmiller versus Dover trial from 2005. And what was found there was that creation, intelligent design, which is basically creationism by another name, intelligent design cannot be extracted from its religious roots. So in other words, intelligent design is a religious proposition, not a scientific one. So Frank is wrong when he says it's good science versus bad science. No matter how much jumping and screaming and kicking that the Discovery Institute do, until they can actually formulate their hypothesis in a scientific manner, then they're not going to win the argument. There's no use going, oh, these Darwinists are taking over science and they can't, they're pig-headed, they're proud and arrogant and, all that kind of stuff. No, you need to do a better job. And then where he goes, so this line about it's about good science versus bad science. No, it is religion versus science, and intelligent design is a proponent of religion. The closest you may get is Fred Hoyle, who has his extraterrestrial panspermia idea, but that's not really an intelligent design. That's just more the seeding of life. Then he's got, it's not about faith versus reason. It's about reasonable faith versus unreasonable faith. Yes, of course. And a cash deep is more like superstition versus science. I'm gonna put that up. That is, that is. I'll agree. Yes, superstition versus science. Now, where he goes in this next paragraph, Darwinists like Dawkins and Crick rule out intelligent causes before they even look at the evidence. Well, no, that's not quite like they're just looking at the evidence as they see it. And again, like if there was an intelligent, like the best case for intelligent design is the unlikeliness of life starting by itself. But just because something is unlikely doesn't mean it didn't happen. It's a bit like lightning striking people. The likelihood of being struck by lightning is incredibly, incredibly low. I've been alive for 40-something years and I've been through numerous thunderstorms, but I've never been struck by lightning. But that doesn't mean it can't happen. So just because something is either unlikely or just because you don't understand it doesn't automatically mean that the other side is correct. Even if evolution and abiogenesis were disproved at this very second, even if it were renounced by Dawkins himself, if Dawkins went in front of the world tomorrow and said, I renounce my belief in the theory of evolution, that would not for a second mean that creation or intelligent design is the default option. Creation or intelligent design would still have to prove its case effectively. Anyway, back to the book. 2 types of causes: intelligent or natural. Spontaneous generation is what critics of evolution call a just so story. Evolutionists provide no evidence to support spontaneous generation. It isn't supported by empirical observation or forensic science principles. It's just so because life exists. And since intelligent causes are ruled out in advance, there can be no other possible explanation. Thank you, Frank. This the gift that keeps on giving. I don't know if see, this is the problem when you're neck deep in the theological sand. It is very hard to see the world around you. So when you're neck deep in theology, and you've got your head in a bubble, it's very hard to understand the mistakes that you make. So his very first words here: spontaneous generation is what critics of evolution call a just so story. Spontaneous generation was a theory of biological development back from, I think, the 1500s or 1600s, something like that, where it was proposed that, I forget exactly the theory, but it was basically the idea that, for example, maggots would spontaneously generate from meat. So meat had the I suppose, the life source for maggots. And so with enough time, maggots would suddenly generate from the meat, as if the meat is their parents or something like that. And then all it took to disprove that was putting a bowl over the rotten meat, and hey, guess what? No maggots, no flies. So spontaneous generation. But I just it is very Frank Turek to say spontaneous generation for him to mean something and for him to not actually realize what spontaneous generation is. So evolutionists provide no evidence to support spontaneous generation, but the things are, we don't even believe in spontaneous generation. This is a like no one I know who understands the biology of evolution goes, oh, life just suddenly appeared. And here's a comment from Akashdeep. I don't think Frank has looked into archaeological or biological evidences. He just read evolution about it in school. He didn't believe in it without looking for any evidences, probably. Akashdeep, that's an interesting thing. I actually doubt that Frank Turek would have been taught evolution in school. Like in America, some school, depends on what school you go to. If you go to a private school, then you probably won't be taught the theory of evolution. If you go to a public school in the Bible Belt, probably not. But Frank strikes me as a private school kid. But I don't want to make a snarky comment about that. But I would say that Frank Turek is strawmanning evolution. But to strawman evolution, you have to understand it first. And I don't think Frank Turek understands it. But anyway, Kastic, thank you for your comment. Where was I? But yeah, no one goes, life spontaneously generated. No, from the best of our understanding, it was a long, slow process that involves numerous chemicals in numerous stages. No one goes, oh, look, just wake up and look, all of a sudden, here's life. It is, there are numerous things involved. And if we look at the Urey-Miller experiment, even the Urey-Miller experiment, which proved that amino acids can be made from precursor chemicals, that was actually a fairly complex experiment. Yeah, there were multiple parts. But the thing with, for example, amino acids have been found on comets from outer space. And this is something Frank may not realize. So if you believe that amino acids can only form by intelligent design, then, either this intelligent designer is splashing out amino acids willy-nilly, or you have to eventually concede that amino acids can form naturally in conditions that we don't understand. And this is the problem. When your basis for truth is theology, you will cherry pick what people say, you will strawman what people say, you will misunderstand what people say, you will have a myopic view of what people say to support that myopic view that you have, which is to support a theology, not to gain understanding. Sorry about that. Anyway, back to the book. The problem for Darwinists is immense. Biochemist Klaus Dose admits that more than 30 years of research into the origin of life has led to a better perception of the immensity of the problem of the origin of life on Earth, rather than to its solution. At present, all discussions on principal theories and experiments in the field either end in stalemate or in a confession of ignorance. Francis Crick laments, "Every time I write a paper on the origin of life, I swear I will never write another one, because there is too much speculation running after too few facts." Now, I just wonder, so Geisler and Turek have, they've quoted Klaus Dose and Francis Crick. Now, there were a couple of quotes that these guys presented in the book earlier that, how can I say? I caught them quote mining and taking quotes out of context or not using the full original quote. So it's a bit of it. Sorry, my daughter's just sending messages. just got here, family issues. So anyway, so when Geisler and Turek use a quote, take it with a pinch of salt. Back to the book. The evidence is so strong for intelligence and against naturalism that prominent evolutionists have actually suggested aliens deposited the first life here. Fred Hoyle, the same evolutionist who popularized the steady state theory we discussed in chapter 3, invented this far-out theory called panspermia, for seeds everywhere, after calculating the probability of life arising by spontaneous generation was effectively zero. Of course, panspermia doesn't solve the problem. It simply puts it off another step. Who made the intelligent aliens? Boy, I'm never going to get this book read by the way he goes. Fred Hoyle was not an evolutionist. So if you're calling Fred Hoyle an evolutionist, I don't think you understand what that actually means. What else? I don't know if he actually seriously. I don't know if he actually academically proposed. I know Fred Hoyle discussed panspermia, but whether he actually, whether he was just thinking out aloud or whether he actually put his name to the theory and said this is definitely how it began. And things like. Yes, if you calculate the probability of life arising by spontaneous generation, of course it's going to be zero because it is virtually impossible. But no one says life spontaneously arose. This is the thing; it was a gradual process, step by step. And now, Adine, I will thank you for keeping your comments respectful. Just be aware that I will block you if you step out of line. Some of your comments before were a bit unsavory, but Adine goes, evolution is untrue. There's no evidence to it. Richard Dawkins is a delusionist. That is incorrect. Evolution is basically changes in genetic frequencies in populations of self-replicating organisms, and yes. If you're denying that genetics don't change between populations, you've got a long way to go. And we're descendants of Adam and Eve. No, we're not. Lots of people, especially scholars, actually speculate that Adam and Eve didn't actually exist. I'm one of those people. I think Adam and Eve was an etiological myth, not an actual story. So anyway, let's go back to the book. See how long this lasts. As crazy as the theory sounds, at least panspermia advocates recognise that some kind of intelligence must be behind the amazing wonder we call life. Still, when top evolutionists have to resort to aliens to explain the origin of life, the simplest life must be incredibly complex. Another panspermia advocate, Chandra Vikramasinghe, admits that the Darwinists are acting on blind faith when it comes to spontaneous generation. He observes, the emergence of life from a primordial soup on the earth is merely an article of faith that scientists are finding difficult to shed. There is no experimental evidence to support this at the present time. Indeed, all attempts to create life from non-life, starting from Pasteur, have been unsuccessful. Microbiologist Michael Denton, though himself an atheist, adds, the complexity of the simplest known type of cell is so great that it is impossible to accept that such an object could have been thrown together suddenly by some kind of freakish, vastly improbable event. Such an occurrence would be indistinguishable from a miracle. And again, now there was a name that I recognised there, Chandra Vikramasinghe. Now, if I remember his name correctly, okay. So, Nalin Chandra Vikramasinghe is a Sri Lankan-born British mathematician, astronomer, and astrobiologist. So he's a biologist, but not quite in the field. His specialty is actually astronomy, and I remember, when I was learning astronomy in university, Vikrama Singh's name came up again and again because he is a smart guy. But back in a sec. All right, sorry about that. That was, yes, my wife had to. So, Akash Deep puts in the comments, I like how America has a 90 and 99% literacy rate, but some of them act like a bunch of illiterates, just like a dean compared to other countries when the literacy rate is lower. I don't know if we need to make smart aleck comments about a dean. Let's not get into ad hominems or personal insults. So I will take... But yes, I agree. The literacy rate in America should almost guarantee that they're smarter, but it just means they can. It just means that they can read wrong things better. So, yes, and Michael Denton. So, yeah. So again, like it's just quote mine after quote mine, quote here, quote there. Like, okay, it's. So even if all these people are correct in that, well, so firstly, life did not spontaneously arise. This is the straw man. This is I wouldn't call it a straw man because they don't understand it in the first place. But it's so it's really weird how Turek is going. Oh, you guys believe in miracles, and yet their whole thing is that life arose by a miracle, well, magic, but one man's miracle is another man's magic. So yeah. Anyway, let's go again. In light of just so explanations such as spontaneous generation and panspermia, who do you think is practicing the bad science? The people derisively called religious, the theists/creationists, or the enlightened ones, the atheists/Darwinists, who are really just as religious as the religious? Physicist and information scientist Hubert Yockey realizes it's the Darwinists. He writes, "The belief that life on Earth arose spontaneously from non-living matter is simply a matter of faith in strict reductionism and is based entirely on ideology." Okay, why is Frank Turek quoting a physicist in the field of biology? I really don't get it. Yockey is right. Darwinists falsely believe they can reduce life to its non-living chemical components. That's the ideology of reductionism. For Darwinists like Dawkins or Crick, who must believe that only the material and not the immaterial exists, then life can be nothing more than chemicals. But life is clearly more than chemicals. Life contains a message, DNA, that is expressed in chemicals. But those chemicals cannot cause the message any more than the chemicals in ink and paper can cause the sentences on this page. A message points to something beyond chemicals. The message is in life. just like the one on this page, points to an intelligence beyond its chemical elements. We realise that life is certainly more than chemicals with a message, but the key point here is that it's certainly not less. Oh boy, it just gets worse and worse. Again, this book isn't to prove to atheists that they're wrong. It's more to make Christians feel better about their own religious beliefs. Oh boy, yes, it's just annoying. But yeah, so when he goes Darwinist, what does he mean by Darwinist? Because like technically, okay, we have a comment here from Vikramaditya, Lord of the Earth. I like how Frank is only targeting Darwinists and Darwin himself when Anaximander of Miletus Pasara Dwangzhou first discussed about evolution. Actually, that is a very good point. Yes, because in Frank Turek's world, it's the universities that are the bastion of anti-Christian hatred. The relative morality is what's killing America and the world, and it's the universities that are the home of relative morality, and universities also teach Darwinism as the only explanation for life. Yeah, you're a dope, Frank. So, what was it? So the problem though is that life is like, no matter how way you want to slice it, life is chemicals. Your hair is keratin. Your skin is made up of cells. You take away those cells, and your muscles are protein chains. All this kind of stuff. Actually, I'm going to replay that. Okay, cool. I might actually do this one. Sorry about the ad. Yeah, you can enjoy a Maya sale, 30% off. So yeah, and then this whole idea that DNA is a message. I really get annoyed when creationists go, DNA is a message. No, DNA is not a message. DNA is simply just chemical chains coming together and doing what chemical chains do. And I hope you enjoy what's in the background. Yeah, so it is just interesting that not even his deity was able to communicate the concept of DNA. It was up to humans to... but like, tell me, what message does GTAC carry across? It doesn't. All they are is just letters. All GTAC are letters that represent chains of amino acids. That is all it is. Yeah, Frank here gets annoying sometimes. But anyway, back to the book. So, by blind allegiance to this naturalistic reductionist ideology, which is against all observation and reason, Darwinists dogmatically assert that life arose spontaneously from its non-living chemical components. Ironically, this is exactly what Darwinists have long accused creationists of doing, allowing their ideology to overrule observation and reason. In truth, it's the Darwinists who are allowing their faith to overrule observation and reason. Creationists and intelligent design proponents are simply making a rational inference from the evidence. They are following the evidence exactly where it leads, back to an intelligent cause. Yockey is not the only one pointing out that Darwinists have a philosophical bias against intelligent causes. Philip Johnson serves as the sharp edge of a steel wedge that is now splitting the petrified wood of naturalism in the scientific community. He correctly points out that Darwinism is based on an a priori commitment to materialism, not on a philosophically neutral assessment of the evidence. Separate the philosophy from the science, and the proud tower collapses. And it's not just the critics of evolution who see this bias. Prominent Darwinists admit it as well. In fact, Dawkins himself has acknowledged the bias in responding to an email question from Philip Johnson. Our philosophical commitment to materialism and reductionism is true. Dawkins, right? But I would prefer to characterize it as a philosophical commitment to a real explanation, as opposed to a complete lack of an explanation, which is what you espouse. Dawkins may think he has a real explanation, but as we have seen, his explanation is against all of the observable and forensic evidence. If you ever hear me say that this book is the one that gives me, one that raises my blood pressure, I think you've just heard why. Let's see what Vikramaditya has to say. In the West, creationists deny evolution, although it has biological evidences here in the East. RSS nationalists deny Indo-European migration theory when it has genetical and biological evidences. Yep, that's a good point. That is a good point. So what has he said wrong here? Yeah, what has he said wrong here? Actually, he is right in that. As an atheist, I do give preeminence to materialist or naturalistic explanations. But the reason for that, there's a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, no one has explained what the supernatural actually is. The best definition for the supernatural I've come across is essentially what the natural can't explain. But that's not really saying what the supernatural is, it's just saying what the supernatural isn't. If the supernatural affected the material, how would we know, for a start? And the problem is that for every problem that we've had in human history, its resolution has been by naturalistic means. So, for example, back in ancient times, when we didn't know what volcanoes were, when people invented deities that lived inside volcanoes, that's because we didn't know what those things were or how they operated. Now we know how geology works. There is no need for Vulcan, god of the volcanoes. There is now no need for Thor, god of thunder. We know how thunder works. There is no need for the god of earthquakes, because we know how earthquakes work. There is no need for a god of war, because we have all these advanced military machines capable of shooting things and spying on things and all that kind of stuff. So we have no need for a god of war now. Sickness and diseases and mental health issues all have their resolution and their fix in naturalistic therapies and cures. Like if the supernatural were able to work, what we should see is, preachers going into hospitals with tambourines and guitars and singing worship songs, and all of a sudden the people inside all walk up and walk out completely healed. If prayer worked, the governments could save billions of dollars in public health care by sending preachers and faith healers into hospitals. But we don't see faith healers work in hospitals for the same reasons we don't see psychics win lotteries. Think about that. So I actually agree with Dawkins' statement here that I'll prefer to characterise it as a philosophical commitment to a real explanation as opposed to a complete lack of explanation, and that is correct. Actually, who is this Philip Johnson? I want to see who he is. I'm going to play some music while I search. So Philip Johnson. Let's see what we get. Okay, there's an architect. Sports architect. Philip Johnson Laird. Professor of psychology, no. President of Boeing. I don't know. But this is the politician. Okay, I don't know who this Philip Johnson actually is. Let me just Johnson Richard. One of the other fallacies that Here we go. One of the other fallacies that Geisler and Turek make is that, Darwinism is Dawkins and Dawkins is Darwinism, and there's no it's sort of like Dawkins is the Pope of atheism. No, Dawkins Dawkins is correct in his assessment of oh, hold on, here we go. I think I've found some pay dirt. Sorry about that. I might share this screen. Uno momento, my friends. Uno momento. Share screen. Chrome tab and alright. So this is from Talk Origins. Talk Origins, fantastic. The interface is really outdated, but okay. So Philip Johnson, a law professor who was a clerk to Chief Justice Earl Warren, is the author of Darwin on Trial and is one of the founders of the intelligent design movement. No wonder Geisler and Turek quoted him. He doesn't have the relevant scientific qualifications. Oh God, that's a... Okay, Darwin on Trial. Let me then look up Darwin on Trial. And look, I'm actually happy for Darwin to be on trial. Let's test our theories. Let's put our theories to the test. And okay, so Philip E. Johnson is a UC Berkeley law professor, opponent of evolutionary science, co-founder of the pseudoscientific intelligent design movement, author of the Wedge Strategy, and co-founder of the Discovery Institute Center for Science and Culture. And look, here's my wife. You need an itch again, is it? Okay. I'll give my wife an itch. Okay. Up, yep. Down. Right. Okay. No worries, you're welcome. Okay, so yes, no wonder this guy is quoted by Geisler and Turek, is because yes, it is. I probably trust him as a lawyer, but I wouldn't actually trust him as a. He described himself, in a sense, the father of the intelligent design movement. But yes, I would go to episode 30 of my podcast and check out the interview I did with Glenn Branch to actually understand why the Discovery Institute's case failed. It's actually quite interesting. Oh, hello. Alright, so what is so Vikramaditya has put in the comments, there'll be no need for God of the universe like Vishnu, Allah, Yahweh, Jesus after we discover the complete truth about the universe. Quite possible. Look, I'd say there is no need for them now, and partly because we don't know what deities are. No one has put forth an academic definition of what a deity is. The closest we get, again, is gaps in our current knowledge. So, before we realised that men and women having sex cause babies, it was, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I was put together in my mother's womb. No, genius, that's cell replication. That's, that's the natural process of, and then we go, how did the eyes and ears come about? Well, eyes and ears come about every day by natural processes because we don't see God installing ears and eyes in kids, during gestation. So again, it's failed. The argument fails there. So again, like the most common definition of what a deity is something that natural ideas, the material or scientific ideas can't yet explain. But again, we go back to earthquakes, cholera, volcanoes, thunder, floods, all this sickness, crop failure. We go to all these things. And primitive people who did not have science blamed all that stuff on deities or, an immaterial force that they hadn't pleased. And that's why they sacrificed, because they didn't understand what those things were. But now we have information, we have the scientific method that has helped us understand our natural world. And, vaccines, for example, there is no spiritual equivalent to a vaccine. So think about that. But anyway, I've gone on long enough. This is I somewhat regret going back into this book because, it's just so full of... and so in the 45 minutes I've been reading, I've gone through 3 pages. But if you keep saying wrong things, I will keep on coming back at you. But anyway, to Vikramaditya, Akashdeep and Adine, thank you for keeping the comments respectful and some mostly pleasant. But yeah, wherever you are, whatever time of day it is, whatever you happen to be doing tomorrow, because it is almost 6 o'clock where I am. So I'm gonna say good night, good evening, go have some dinner, go pick up my daughter from a friend's place, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, look after yourselves, be kind to one another and to yourselves. But until next time, check out the podcast, anchor.fm/TF80pod, or head over to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Spotify, Anchor, Pocket Cast, a million and one different podcast platforms, anchor.fm, so Twitter at TF80pod, facebook.com/TF80pod, or head on over to www.tallfriendlyatheistdad.com to check out my blog. But until next time.
So far